Thank you for joining us today for our From Risk to Resilience, Securing Your Network in 2026 on-demand webinar. My name is Chris Nation, and I'm the marketing manager here at Mirzon, and we are very excited that you tuned in for this important discussion. We know that cyber threats are evolving rapidly in 2026, and the traditional network security approaches are no longer enough. As attacks grow more sophisticated, business needs need to be really more resilient and really integrated to protect their environments. Mirzon is excited to be partnering with Fortinet to unpack what we're seeing in the industry. I'm happy to be joined by Chris Blanchard, channel systems engineer and cybersecurity expert at Fortinet. He's going to be breaking down the current threat landscape and sharing practical strategies to strengthen your network, reduce risk, and build a more resilient security posture. Before we jump into the conversation, I wanted to share briefly just a bit about Mirzon and our company. Mirzon is a 26-year-old technology service provider company, and our goal really is to utilize technology to elevate business. And so our focus is, how do we improve business outcomes? How do we grow the business? How do we protect the business? We have three core services: managed IT, cybersecurity, and IT consulting. We've been privileged to be working with Fortinet for a number of years. They are our strategic cybersecurity partner, and they really help protect our clients' networks and systems. Now, I'm excited to kick things off and introduce our speaker. Chris Blanchard has worked in all areas of networking throughout his 30-plus career, progressing from first-line help desk support to operations to field support to programmer and to eventually systems administration. Chris has worked with products from Fortinet, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Cisco, and at various companies, including IBM and AT&T. Over the last 12 years, Chris's focus has been with Fortinet and on Fortinet and SD-WAN. And Chris, as channel systems engineer, you have a number of certifications. You have an expertise in this level, so we're really excited to hear your presentation today as we dive into how to fortify your cybersecurity. And so, Chris, with that, thank you for taking the time to join us today to have this discussion, and I'm turning over the presentation to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. As Chris said, I've been working with Fortinet now for about a little over, actually at this point, almost 14 years. I've been with Fortinet for a little over a year, started in January of last year. Prior to that, I was with AT&T on the MSSP side of their business, the last 12 of which was exclusively Fortinet offer development and product development for them. Moving into today, what we're going to discuss is the 2026 Cloud Security Report that we released in January. I would encourage everyone to go out and get a copy of that. You can, this URL right here, you can go out and get that, but it is freely available. You just have to enter in your email address and you can download that. I will have some of the information in this forthcoming slides, but overall, there's a lot of good information in that report that you'll want to look at. The biggest takeaway from the report is, cloud adoption. It's a continuing thing. Most of the organizations today have more than one cloud. We've got folks in AWS, we've got folks in Google, we've got folks in Oracle, we've got folks in Azure, and I, as most of you know, all of those are a little different, and it's those little differences that get us caught. As I alluded to earlier, complexity is the problem, and my coworker, I stole this title directly from him because this is his favorite saying: complexity is the enemy of security. It generally gets us in trouble. So oftentimes we think we're being clever. We do things a little bit more complicated than we should. We end up getting in trouble as a result of it. But what we've got, if we look at this deck, we can see the constraints that we're dealing with, and that the biggest issue is over 66% of organizations lack confidence in their abilities to detect and respond to threats. And honestly, I'm surprised it's that low, because it's getting worse every day. We're all tasked to do more with less. When I was with my previous employer, that was the constant battle. Is we've got cuts. We can't bring people on. We have to do more. It was difficult. So budget and resource limitations, that's always a problem. The tools and the visibility, that's a bigger problem, and I don't see that going away. So what we really need to do is to simplify our efforts going forward, and try to get things to their lowest common denominator and just simplify everything.
And Chris, actually, I wanted to touch on a point there. I'm curious, when you work with clients, because I agree, complexity really is the enemy of security. Simple is usually always best. How often do clients that you work with actually understand the complexity of their environment? Do they truly understand maybe that they have too many tools, or they're not properly put together, or maybe sometimes they don't even know how things are put together? Do they truly understand how complex their network or environments are when you first start talking with them?
Truthfully, almost never. And that's applies to small clients, it applies to big clients. But without going into too much detail, nobody understands their networks. Even the people that think they do don't. Once you start peeling back the layers, invariably somebody's like, "Oh, I had no idea," and that's applies just as equally to your mom and pop shops as it does your AT&Ts and your IBMs. So nobody understands their network.
Yeah, that's great.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Agree. Yeah, we have found too on our side that the more complex you tend to get, and you nailed it on the head with the top point there, is visibility. Do you have visibility into all the tools and systems that are working together? And sometimes that gets very limited, right, when you have a lot more complexity. So yeah, really great points.
Yeah, and honestly, I was talking to somebody yesterday, a buddy of mine, last night, ridiculously late, who works for a very large PC manufacturer. And they were discussing how to get their labs and their corporate network to communicate for one of their mandatory tests. And again, their security team was discovering, the common term is rogue IT. So this development shop has all of these access points and stuff in their lab. That turns out they bridged things they shouldn't, and nobody knew. And that was exploding yesterday. So yeah, nobody understands their networks, and there's always things going on. And as good of tooling as we think we have, it's never as good as we think it is, which is unfortunate. It's getting better, but it is what it is. And cloud makes it worse. I'm not sure how many of you have actually delved into the ins and outs of cloud. I myself have done less than I should have, but I did have instances in Azure and AWS in my previous role, because we did run lab systems in both, and we had customers in both. And while they're similar, they're subtly different. And it's those subtle differences that get us in trouble. And one of the things that is almost certainly the case in all of them, well, I shouldn't say all. I've only got significant experience in AWS and Azure, but they're both actually flat and by design. And we try to shoehorn them into not being flat, but reality is, if you configure something wrong, once somebody compromises one of your devices in there, odds are they're going to get to all of them, because it is essentially a flat network. And now, we've got, everybody with multi-cloud. 32% of our respondents, are multi-cloud. 56 are hybrid cloud, and 12% are single cloud. But we've got the hybrid and the multi. 88% of folks are therefore running in two separate instances of clouds, which means, do they really have experts in AWS and Azure, or do they just have a cloud guy? So that complicates everything, but that's the norm. That's where we are. And this is constant. Talent shortage are a constant restraint. I will straight up tell you, when the cloud stuff landed on my lap, I had no idea what I was doing. The number of times that I, set it up, blew it away because it wasn't working, immeasurable. I finally got it, working. Was it configured correctly? I don't know. Now, and here we've got 77% express, concern. Reality is it probably should be closer to 100%, but because blind faith. This is one of the things. Fortinet acquired a company called Lacework about a year ago, year and a half ago, and it does some pretty remarkable things in that it can look at your cloud configuration and offer remediation. It's a pretty powerful product. I'm not going to claim to be an expert at it, and if anybody has any interest in that, we can get you in touch with somebody. But it is a very powerful tool. But again, at the end of the day, we're lacking. Our industry lacks sufficient talent, because it's a limited resource pool, and it only seems to be getting worse as cloud expands. I'm sorry, you had a question, Chris?
Yeah, no, this is a really important point, because we're seeing this on our side as well with companies that we work for, of just talent. And one point here, just to throw a solution to this, is sometimes you may need a physical body in your department or on your staff, and sometimes you can augment that with working with a company or MSP or an IT consulting company that can really boost your cybersecurity posture and your expertise. One of the values of working with an IT company is typically they have depths of experiences at all different levels. And that really is a competitive advantage for a lot of companies, because trying to hire individually experts in these certain fields can get very expensive really quick. And sometimes, depending on your market, that talent may be a shortage in your market. And so, for our listeners, is one of the things to consider are companies that have that expertise in the cybersecurity space, and that they work with credible partners like Fortinet that can really come in with their solutions and their tools and their platforms and their hardware to give you that cybersecurity posture. And so, not every company needs to have, I think, a full cybersecurity, talented staff of 5 or 6 people. Sometimes you can augment that with companies that specialize in this. And so, for those that may be balancing budget, consider that, because sometimes companies can give you not just cybersecurity, but a lot of other IT expertise abilities in your company. So I just wanted to pause and just highlight that, because I do think talent shortages and really expertise shortages is a really particular problem right now in our industry. So great point on that.
That is absolutely correct, Chris. The number of customers that I have spoken to over the years that are, they readily admit they don't have the talent, but they're adverse to bringing on a partner to help them with that. And I've never understood it. It's like, you can't afford to bring somebody in full time, but go leverage someone else's expertise. Otherwise you run the great risk of getting yourself in some sort of scenario where your best case is somebody's holding your data for ransom. Your worst case is that they just take it and wipe it out. So great point. Leverage your partners, leverage the expertise. Not everybody has to be an employee. Frankly, there's not enough people for everybody to be an employee. That's the problem. Hybrid work, cloud, and Gen AI. This is becoming more of a problem. We've got visibility and control gaps We've got all of this complexity that we just addressed from, cloud, all of our architecture being everywhere, overhead. And then we've also got something we haven't touched on right now is regulatory pressure from governments, concerning, the sovereignty of the data that we generate, because all of these tools generate data. Depending on where you're located, you've got different rules for handling that data. But going back, Gen AI. I mean, on one hand, this is a great thing. On the other hand, it seems that with everything good comes something bad, and we've got all of the hackers and players that wish us ill will are equally using Gen AI to get into our systems, and that's only escalating. Software as a service, we've got tools in Microsoft, we've got tools in SAP, we've got tools in Salesforce, we've got tools everywhere, and that's just, how do we keep track of it all?
Yeah, and Chris, just a point to echo what you're saying on the AI front. We're seeing a lot of clients and really the industry in general, where there's such a rush right now to adopt AI, to be competent in AI, and trying to embed it within the company, because that's what everyone else is doing, and you don't want to be left behind, right?
Absolutely.
But as you're doing that, sometimes we're seeing you're pressing the gas down a little too fast, and we're removing some of the guardrails. And so we're seeing some clients putting things into, example, like a chat or a copilot. And some of that data is sensitive information that should not be there, because once you put the data in there, unless you have a very controlled and sandbox environment, it's accessible to possibly other people. And so you are the product, right? From an AI standpoint, they're using you to learn and adopt and optimize their product. And so be careful, just a general note, be careful about the data that you're putting in, because that is a cybersecurity issue. And then just a breaking news, recent kind of point that happened a couple of days ago is you've probably seen this. Anthropic, their new Claude model, Mythos, is apparently, so advanced that it's labeling all these cybersecurity issues with browsers and companies and systems. And so we're living in a world where cybersecurity now is becoming really, what I like to use this phrase a lot, a competitive advantage for businesses. And this is not just an expense, it's really an investment. And so AI, I think, is really accelerating that risk. You nailed it right there with the way you're phrasing. I think that's going to continue, right? We're going to continue to iterate with AI. It's going to get better, it's going to get smarter, it's going to get more advanced. And that also continues to present risk. And so from a cybersecurity posture, people listening and clients and companies need to make sure that when they're using AI to downgrade your cybersecurity, right, it should complement it. And so just a great point there, because I know that's kind of a pressing topic for a lot of companies is, yes, we need AI and we got to jump into AI. But yes, that may be the case, but don't run so fast that you're tearing down some of those guardrails. So,
right. And to capitalize on your point, one of the things you talk about Mythos, that they've announced Mythos, it's out there now, but the question you have to ask is, okay, if they're telling us about Mythos, what else is out there, and how long was Mythos out there doing its thing before they told us about it? So yeah, great point. What can we do about it? One of the things, and I like to tell this story. I used to be primarily for the first 10 years or so of my cybersecurity portion of my career, I was a fanboy of another vendor. I'm not going to say who, but I was tasked with evaluating a wireless solution by my employer, and I was looking at a solution from this other vendor and Fortinet. And the solution that I was looking at the time were two set-top boxes, which is all that the firewall vendor A offered. It was just a small set-top, unified, what looks like a Forti Wi-Fi now. For those that are familiar with that, just a single box that sits under your counter somewhere. And my SE at the time said, well, hey, here's our Forti Wi-Fi, but actually I'm going to give you this other device, a Forti AP, and use that. because and his argument was, where do you put a set-top box? It typically goes under your desk, that kind of place. Not an ideal place for a wireless solution, that needs to be up on the ceiling somewhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, explain this to me, because I did not have any Fortinet familiarity at that time, so it was really kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool. And I'm like, so this hooks up here. It's like, yeah, you can hook this up. You can have, a couple dozen of them, and this goes on, because I was looking at a device called a Forta Wi-Fi 80C. That kind of dates it, I suppose. And I saw how it worked, and all of a sudden it becomes part of the firewall. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that? He's like, yeah, that, and we didn't use the term fabric at the time, but it was the Fortinet fabric. And I'm like, okay, we're done. I told my boss, I said, okay, look, we're not looking at, vendor A anymore, because that's just, we're not doing it. Fortinet's the way we're doing it. And oh, by the way, I'd like to do more of this. So this is how I ended up getting into Fortinet, is what we now call the fabric. And that's all made possible by FortiOS. All of these features are built into FortiOS. And we've got a Wi-Fi controller, we've got a switch controller, we've got SD-WAN and to be clear, SD-WAN is part of FortiOS. It is not a licensed feature. SD-WAN will be, if your box becomes unlicensed, SD-WAN still works. This is not a thing. There's vendors out there where if you don't pay your licensing fees, your switches become bricks and your firewalls become bricks. There are some features that if you don't do licensing, they're not going to work. Your URL filtering, all of your cloud-based features, those will, obviously stop working. But your firewall, your SD-WAN, your switches, that would continue working. That's built in. That's a fundamental part of FortiOS. And what this does is it gives you, fewer vendors. You're dealing with a single vendor. Because of that, you've got better security posture, lower cost of ownership, and simplified operations. This is the simplification I was talking about earlier. You don't have multiple people pointing at each other. You've got a single vendor, a single solution, a single pane of glass. I hate that word, but it really is a single pane of glass that gives you this visibility. And more importantly, it is a single overarching security posture. And that's what really brought me into Fortinet, is when I saw that integration, that that my VLANs and my SSIDs all became interfaces that I could control the traffic all through my firewall policy. It was a lights on moment for me. And for what it's worth, I did tell the vendor A, that shall go unnamed, at the time, is like, guys, you need to take a very hard look at the way these Fortinet guys are doing this, because that is the future. And I'm still very good friends with some of the people over there, so I'm not going to trash anybody. But they have given me, when I took the job here at Fortinet, they're like, oh, now you're the enemy, all in good fun. But I came over here, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid when I got here. I drank the Kool-Aid 14 years ago, when I was multi-vendor. So I truly believe this is the way. Again, 25 years we've been doing this, and all of these features are built into the operating system. All of this is it's in the name, fortify your network. That was Ken's vision, all those years ago, and that's still our vision. And going back to AI, so some of the stuff we're doing with AI right now is pretty ingenious. With our FortiManager, we've got some situations now where it sounds almost science fiction, but you can draw something on a piece of paper and scan that in and upload it to FortiAI, and it will build that config for you. And I've seen that work, and it's pretty remarkable, in that we've gotten to that point. But it is, again, simplification. We have to simplify our operations. We have to simplify things because we don't have enough people. We don't have enough skill set. So
Yeah, and Chris, I love this graphic because you see the evolution. And one thing from our standpoint, I think you guys would echo this from what you're seeing at Fortinet is AI doesn't stop, right? It's 24/7. You can engineer it in a way that it's always on guard and always looking and always monitoring. The flip side of that is, bad actors and hackers and those criminals are also using AI to scale and automate their hacks. And so I think we're living in a world now where you don't have to have a room full of 30 plus people in a computer. Maybe you can just have one that has adopted AI now to scale and try to find those vulnerabilities. And so I'm very happy to see, right, that a lot of companies, and Fortinet in particular, is really leveraging artificial intelligence to push back against artificial intelligence in certain ways. So, and it's a constant evolution. I think we're moving faster than we've ever seen before with some of these technologies. So I love how it's just wrapping around a lot of these services and really moving forward. So great graphic.
thank you. One of the things you just said reminds me of something I read or heard a long time ago. But you are correct. We've always got to be on guard because our attackers can launch, thousands of attacks at us, and we have to block every single one of them. If we miss once, they win. They can launch thousands of times, and we only have to miss the one time. And eventually, you take enough shots at something. I'm going to make my hockey analogy. You take enough shots at the goal, eventually you're going to miss one. You're going to make one. The goalie can't catch them all. Again, simplifying our operations, and improving our security posture is the goal here. And to that end, we have a single client, which is FortiClient, that allows us to do ZTNA, our VPN, endpoint protection, digital experience monitoring, sandbox, vulnerability scans. That's all part of the simplification. I can say that down the road, we are going to actually implement EDR into that client. I can't really give you the time frame, but probably in 2026. And then ultimately that leads us down to the one single client called FortiEndpoint. But like I said, 2026 is kind of the target. And then that'll bring endpoint detection and response into this mix as well. Digital experience monitoring, I don't know if you're very familiar with that. That is where we're able to look, say, at a Teams connection, and if there's a problem with the application experience, we'll be able to tell you where that is, whether that's on the endpoint, whether that's in the network, where it might be in the network, or if it's on the application server itself. FortiSASE, again, all part of our simplification efforts. This is something that allows you to take an endpoint and have the same security posture on it, whether it's on your network, whether it's at your employee's home, whether it's in a coffee shop, whether it's in an airport. That policy is a singular policy that is applied to that laptop or that device always. It's an always-on connection. It allows consistency no matter the location. And we can extend that to devices. We can extend that to what we call the thin edge, which is a small branch office or a kiosk location using just an extender or a switch. We can integrate that with third-party devices now. And again, if you have a gate or something of that nature, as well as your laptops, your mobile devices. But again, you end up with a single policy applied always on network, off network. The experience is the same for the end user. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier. We are moving to the single endpoint. Really not a whole lot more I'm going to say about that one. This next slide is one of my favorites, and I'm going to get in trouble with what I'm about to say right now. all of this technology that we put out there on our networks is great, and I'm all for putting technology out there, but we, the end users, are the weakest link. And one of the programs from my previous employer that I really, really, really took heart of is you are the firewall. Every individual in your company is the best firewall. And we don't if we don't think of it in that manner, we're the problem. If you just blindly click on things, we can have the best protection in the world. But as I said earlier, you know, our attackers only have to get one bad email in and somebody clicks on the link. That's to our disadvantage. And Fortinet combined two products, and this is part of our internal project this year and going forward. Right now, we have over 60 products. That's too many. We are taking a look at the portfolio and we are simplifying where we can and combining. And we now have a product called FortiSAT, FortiSAT, that is a combination of FortiFish, which is a phishing product that was available, and security awareness training, and we have combined those into a single product. But the phishing, I'm going to give an example. My wife works for a law firm, and there is one of the attorneys there, and they do frequent phishing campaigns, I should point out. There's an attorney there, and she's been there a number of years now. This guy consistently, every single time they send out a phishing link, he clicks it. And this has been going on for years. And eventually, it's my understanding that they took away his email privilege and everything now has to go through his assistant. I don't know how well that works. I mean, I'm of the opinion he should have been fired. It's like, you know what? You can't bring that much value to a company where you risk compromising all data within the company. But the FortiSAT program or product combines security awareness training and phishing into a single product that allows you to send out your phishing attempts. It keeps track and scores the user response and can track users into remediation programs, that fail. So this is a great thing, and this is another example of the simplification that's happening here as well, even among our product risk. But again, the thought that you are the firewall is something that touched me a while back. It's like that's thinking in that term makes you a better employee and helps mediate a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to echo that point because you're spot on, right? You as the human being are also that firewall. This is a very simplified, way to think about it, but imagine you have an office building and you have the best, security system you can imagine, but if an employee walks out the door and leaves the door open, well, there's an open door. And so we really have to think about all the employees from top C-suite all the way down to intern, right? And do they understand their role in the company, what they're clicking on, what they have access to, and the implications of things they do online? And you mentioned this, we really, really stress cyber awareness and cybersecurity training and how to identify what a phishing email looks like, what to do if you get one. Should you forward it? Should you screenshot it? What should you do? What's the protocol? But also understanding what is the implication for you and the business if you do these type of things. And so that type of training, I think, puts a lot of information in employees' minds about how to identify. The one point I would say is that training has to be consistent and constant. You can't just do it 5 years ago and say, yeah, we did it, check that box. Things evolve almost every day in this world, and so we have to be vigilant. And again, I know we talked a lot about AI. AI is making phishing emails a lot more professional, and where it's hard to really sometimes identify, is this from a real person or is this someone trying to spoof or attack me? And so that just to hit that point that yes, the human being is as oftentimes the weak link, but it also tends to be one of the most important links. And so training is valuable. Train your staff, train your employees, and do it regularly. So great point.
Absolutely. And we all tend to get cocky about it. My coworker and we started the same day. So we're almost like brothers, but we do phishing campaigns internally a lot, almost to the point of once a week. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. I've never been anywhere that does them as often as we do, but he fell for one of them. And oh my God, I was actually on the phone when he clicked it with him. We were doing something and he got he's ah! But point is, everybody can fall for them, no matter what your level of experience and expertise. So always look at this stuff carefully and with a critical eye. I'm not going to read these bullet points. Everybody can read, but it is an absolute. I just put this here because I really felt it showcased the simplification efforts and the effort to simplify everything and just make it easier. One thing I am going to say, Fortinet, we're one of the most actually, we are the most trusted cybersecurity company out there. And we are actually one of the most trusted companies in general. I don't remember the exact ranking, but it's in the top 20 of companies worldwide. But we are the most trusted cybersecurity company. And the other thing is we are not so arrogant as to think that we can do it all ourselves. We do extend our fabric. We do have partners. There's over 3,000 integrations and 400 plus partners that integrate into the Fortinet fabric. So we don't think we can do everything. We do have, we do recognize the expertise of other companies and we partner with those companies. And with that, I will wrap things up. If there's any questions I can answer, please, feel free.
Yeah, Chris, we, thank you for diving into that. I think it's really important today to understand really what's just happening in the landscape, because a lot of us see headlines in our newsfeed sometimes of what's happening and what's going on. But I've found sometimes that some people think that just applies to enterprise level businesses or publicly traded companies. And so sometimes small and medium-sized businesses don't think that applies to them. And just for any small businesses or medium-sized businesses that are listening to this is, yes, it does apply to you. And hackers will go for the opportunity. If they can get in, they can get in. And so, regardless of how big your company is or the type of industry that you're in, cybersecurity matters, your posture matters, the tools that you use also matter. And so we always think in terms of investment in our company, and we think, yes, it's an expense. Some of these tools may be expensive, but what's the cost of not having it? What's the cost actually if you do get breached? And almost always it's significantly higher than whatever that tool may have cost you. So, just a word of warning, but also just an encouragement to our listeners is consider these things as an investment in your company's future, because the opposite of this is much more damaging to your company. And so, Chris, with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. This is an on-demand webinar format, and so we appreciate everyone that's listening to this. We hope that you will share it out to your networks, especially with some of the things that Fortinet is offering in their product suite. We've been working with Fortinet for a number of years, particularly with a lot of their different firewall products and switches and SASE, et cetera. And so we know they are a very reputable company, and that's how we continue to partner with Fortinet. So, Chris, I really appreciate your helpful insights that you shared. And again, just to reiterate, here at Mirazon, our goal is to really use technology to elevate business. And I'll keep using that talking point, but it's important. We want to elevate business. We all know when technology does not work for you. We've all experienced that. But usually when it's working great, you don't notice it. But that becomes a really competitive advantage for your company. And so if anyone on this listening to this on-demand webinar has a need to improve their cybersecurity posture, to have awareness training, to think about some really great tools and products that can help protect their business, we love to discuss how we work with Fortinet, how we could offer Fortinet solutions to your business. You can reach out to us at info@mirazon.com. or just go to our website, mirazon.com, to learn more about our company. And we have a lot of information about how we work with Fortinet on our website as well. So we'd be happy to have that conversation. Chris, I'm going to give you the very last word before we close today. But out of everything you've shared today, what's kind of your one lasting comment? What's the most important thing you think businesses should be doing right now in this cybersecurity front? It could be some of the simplest things, but what do you recommend companies start doing right now?
The biggest thing I can recommend for somebody to do right now is work with your technology partners, because none of us know everything. It's just not possible. So work with your technology partners. Treat them like partners, not competitors. That's the biggest thing. Guys like you are out there to assist companies. You're not out there competing with them. You are their technology partners, and people need to understand that. We can't do everything by ourselves, just like Fortinet can't do everything by itself, and we partner with folks that are experts in their field. I would encourage anyone out there to partner with somebody who's in their field. If I'm a small business that's manufacturing widgets, I manufacture widgets. I'm not a security expert. So
yeah,
work with your partners.
Really great point. Yeah. And I would just say, too, if anyone on this call is looking for a partner, we'd be happy to have that conversation. So Chris, with that, we're going to wrap up our discussion today. Really, really thank you for joining us and taking the time to walk us through this information. We appreciate the partnership with Fortinet and what you guys has helped us do for our clients. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in for today's discussion. Have a great afternoon, and this webinar is officially complete. Thank you, guys.